I spent a year and a half trying to save a marriage that was already over. I used scripture, I prayed, I planned date nights. I did more around the house than I was already used to doing. I was dancing as fast as I could, trying to prove myself to a woman who looked at me with total indifference. And I remember sitting next to her, pleading, and I asked, "How could you do this to us, to our family, to the vows?" And she looked at me dead in the eyes and said, "I wish there were a switch in my head that I could turn and change things." It was that sentence that told me everything I needed to know. She already made a business decision. I was fighting for a covenant she had already abandoned. If you still send those desperate emotional texts, if you're still begging her to go to counseling, I need you to hear something today. You can't win a war when you're playing by the rules she already threw out. Today, let's talk about the transition. Welcome to the Brilliant Life Podcast. I'm Mike Moulton, your host, and this is a tactical briefing for men navigating divorce, betrayal, and the collapse of everything they thought was solid. Are you ready to work today?
Yeah. Check the mic, 1, 2. This ain't a whisper, this a roar coming through. They try to bury us, but the seed just grew. Now the concrete cracks and the truth breaks through. They told you it was over, said you never survive. But the dead man walking is fully alive. No one is coming to save you, so sharpen the knife. Turn up the podcast, welcome to the brilliant life. Don't let them tell you your story's been spun. Your chapter's not closed, your battle's not done. Every scar's a lesson, every fall a rise. Look them in the eye, see the fire in your eyes. This is the anthem, the beat of the brave. From the ashes we rise, from the darkness we save. No more silence, no more fear, no more lies. Welcome to the brilliant life where the spirit never dies. Where the spirit never dies.
Let me take you inside what I call the desperation phase. For 18 months, I was truly the only one in the fight. I paid for counseling, I set up the appointments, and she would show up and respond in anger. I remember one of our sessions. The counselor looked at me and said, "Mike, how would you feel if she just didn't want the marriage anymore?" That question probably should have woken me up, but honestly, I was asleep. But it did hit me pretty hard. It caused me to go into panic mode. And there were various other times when I went into panic mode. I vividly remember driving by her house with my daughter when she was renting a different place during our separation. My daughter had forgotten something, and as we drove up to the house, running out of the house was another man, running like a coward. I remember I was furious. I was so angry. I texted her emotionally. I was spiraling. I thought she moved out to work on herself. In reality, she moved out to live a single life. Gentlemen, if that story sounds familiar to you, you need to diagnose where you are right now. You're not in a difficult season. You're actually in the limbo trap. What is the limbo trap? How I define the limbo trap is it is a tactical purgatory designed to extract resources from you while she builds her exit strategy. She gets stability of your paycheck and other things. She gets a babysitter for the kids. She gets the social status on Facebook of still being married with pictures and all, but she also gets the freedom to act single. And you get confusion, you get chaos. That's not a marriage, fellas. That's a hostage situation. So why is this so confusing for you? Why does your brain hurt? I was operating from covenant thinking. Marriage is theological. It's permanent. It's sacred. You don't break it just because you're unhappy. She, however, was operating from a contract way of thinking. Marriage was transactional, conditional. She decided the deal wasn't working for her anymore. In reality, I was playing chess. I was using logic, rules, strategy. She was playing poker, bluffing, hiding the cards, and betting against me. You're confused because you think you're both reading from the same rule book. You're not. She's managing two timetables. Timetable A, keep you as calm as she can so that you keep the money flowing. Timetable B, build the new life behind your back. Look, she isn't confused. She knows exactly what she's doing. And until you see that, you're going to keep trying to reason with a person who's already closed the deal. So how do you get out of this? Honestly, you have to let things die. I remember when I finally cracked. I talked about it previously. When I realized I was done, I was on vacation. I left early and I never looked back. But before I could do that, I had to kill the nice guy in my head. So what are some of the things that maybe have to die? For you, This transition may be the belief that you're abandoning your family by protecting yourself. That has to die. The belief that God requires you to stay in a covenant with someone who already broke it. That needs to die. The belief that if you just love her harder, she'll eventually wake up. That has to die. The belief that your kids need an intact marriage more than they need a healthy father. Gentlemen, that needs to die. What died in me wasn't ultimately my faith. What died in me was my willingness to sacrifice my own sanity on the altar of her rebellion. And that death ultimately led to my own resurrection. So, what happens when you flip your own switch? When you go from husband to CEO? I remember my lawyer told me, Mike, you have to realize this is a business transaction now. Treat it like, here's what I want you to do. You need a shift. So, here's a new operating system for you. First, create the CEO visualization. What is that? Before you walk into the house or before you answer the phone, I want you to mentally put on a suit, maybe carry a suitcase. You're not a husband. You're the CEO of your last name Inc. You're walking into a meeting with a hostile counterparty who's trying to liquidate your company. And CEOs, they don't cry in the boardroom. They don't beg. They don't scream. They simply execute. Next, the communication embargo. What? You stop sharing your heart. You share logistics. What time is pickup? 5? Okay. Check is in the mail or it's in Venmo. That's it. No more emotional speeches. You give her the gray rock. Be boring. Be professional. Third, asset protection. You stop asking why. You start asking what. What are my liabilities? What's the custody schedule? You document everything. Not because you're bitter, but because you're building a case file. Once I made the business decision, the anger began to dissipate. It was all operational after that. I think you need a little bit of permission here because honestly, I come from a Christian background. Maybe many of you do. And I know some of you might be asking, Mike, this doesn't seem spiritual. Isn't this me abandoning my vows? Let's open the Bible. God hates divorce, yes, but he also hates treachery. And that's what you're going through. It's treacherous. Listen to me closely. You didn't break the covenant. She did. You remained faithful and steadfast. You honored the vows. But the moment she brought a third party into the union, whether physically or emotionally, she dissolved your marriage. You're not abandoning the marriage. You're simply standing in the rubble of the building she already blew up. You're just simply acknowledging the reality. What about forgiveness, reconciliation? I believe forgiveness is required. You must forgive her to save your own soul. Reconciliation, however, it's not required because reconciliation requires two people. Forgiveness only requires one. God does not require you to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. God does not demand that you sacrifice your mental health and your children's future to enable an abuser. Walk free. You are free. Trust me, you're free. Walk in that freedom, for Christ has set you free. Now, I do need to tell you something. When I first made this business decision, when I changed her contact name, when I started operating like my own CEO in the boardroom instead of a husband in the living room, you know what I felt? Empty. I thought I would feel empowered. I thought I would feel liberated. But instead, I simply felt hollow because tactics without God are just survival. I wasn't surviving well. I was executing the strategy. I was documenting everything. I was using gray rock communication. I was protecting my assets, but I wasn't walking in the resurrection. I was simply existing in the decimation and the rubble. But then something shifted. After my heart attack, being in the house, I was sitting on the couch after the custody exchange. I'd handed the kids off. I was being professional. I was cold. I was tactical. And honestly, as I looked around the house and I got ready to go out and eat by myself, I looked in the mirror while in the bathroom and I saw myself. I didn't recognize that person staring back at me. I had become so focused on protecting myself, I realized that I forgot who I was protecting. See, here's what I didn't understand at first. Making this business decision wasn't about protecting my money or my custody schedule or my legal position. It was honoring the image of God in me that she had been defiling and I'd been letting her defile. When I stopped letting her treat me like trash, I wasn't being strategic. I was being faithful to the man who God made me to be. When I changed her contact name from my love to her first and last name, I wasn't breaking a bond. I was acknowledging that the covenant I had already been broken by her. I was refusing to live in the fantasy anymore. And that's not cold. It's honoring reality. Realize this: God is the God of reality, not fantasy. Let me be clear about something, because sometimes we define things in the church and we define it differently. And I want to tell you this: your body is a temple. Paul writes about it in 1 Corinthians that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. And it's not just your physical body, but your whole body: mind, emotions, dignity, and peace. And when someone is actively desecrating your temple, when you're bringing idols into that place, when they're defiling what God has made sacred, your job isn't to keep the doors open and smile while they burn it all down. Your job is to guard the temple. This business decision isn't about being unspiritual or humanistic. It's about recognizing that protecting yourself is protecting what God created. You're not abandoning love. You're refusing to let someone weaponize it. The CEO mindset isn't corporate strategy. It's stewardship. God gave you a life, resources, children, a future. And when someone is actively trying to liquidate what God entrusted to you, putting on that suit, walking into that boardroom isn't worldly, it's faithful. Here's where the resurrection. I went into those business decisions as a tactic. I came out of it as a son of God who knows his worth. I went in trying to protect my assets or my ass. I came out understanding that I am the asset. I went in thinking I was just surviving a divorce. I came out realizing I was being resurrected into the man that God intended me to be. See, this transition isn't just from husband to CEO. That's the first death, and it's necessary, but it's not resurrection. Resurrection is when you realize you're not a CEO, you're a son of the Most High God. And sons don't have to beg. They don't have to grovel. They don't have to let anyone treat them like they are slaves in their father's house. Sons stand up. Sons protect what the Father gave them. Sons honor the image of God in themselves, even when the world or others try to keep them from knowing their image and their likeness and their authority. So when you make the business decision, when you change the contact name, when you stop sharing your heart and start sharing logistics, I need you to understand what you're actually doing. You're not being cold. You're being obedient. You're not being unloving. You're being faithful to the God who loves you. You're not abandoning your vows. You're honoring the one who made you. And when you do that, when you finally see that protecting yourself is protecting God's temple, that's when the tactics become theology. That's when the strategy becomes worship. That's when the business decision becomes resurrection. See, I didn't stay dead in the hospital bed after my heart attack because God obviously had other plans. And you're not going to stay dead in this divorce either. Trust me. God is in the business of resurrection. He started it with his son. Actually, in the Old Testament, he started. But you can't have resurrection without death first. So let that old man die. The man who begged for scraps, the man who tolerated disrespect, the man who thought his value came from her approval. Let that die. Let God raise up the new man, the son who knows his father, the warrior who guards the temple, the builder who creates something more beautiful than the rubble around you. The transition isn't just tactical. See, it's theological. And when you finally understand that point, everything changes. You're not just protecting your position. You're honoring your father. You're not just surviving. You're resurrecting and rebuilding. And dear brother, this is when you finally start living your brilliant life. So here's the mission. I want you today to do one physical thing to signal to your brain that this transition has started. That change will be a kinetic command. Open your phone, go to her contact. If it says my love or wife or has a heart emoji, change it right now. Change it to her first and last name, or maybe just co-parenting partner. Because every time you see my love pop up or the heart emoji, every time you see that pop up on your screen, your brain releases oxytocin and it keeps you bonded. We want to break that bond. So please change the name and start there. This transition is not the death of your story. Trust me. It's the moment you stop trying to resurrect a corpse and start building a new life. Currently, what you're mourning, it's a fantasy. What you're building is the future. I'm ready to build this with you. And I believe you're built for this. So let's get to work. If you want to work with me, I want to work with you. Let's work on your resurrection. Let's work on rebuilding the new life that you've been granted. I love spending time with you. So thank you for listening to me. That's not lost on me. You could be doing anything else with your day, but you're choosing to spend some time here. I hope it helps. I hope it blesses you. Have an amazing day.
Where the spirit never dies. They built their walls high, thought they had us contained, but the spirit inside us, it can't be restrained. We break every chain, shatter every mold, a new generation. Stories untold, feel the rhythm in your chest, let it fuel your might. Ignite the revolution with all of your light. This ain't just music, it's a call to the fight. Claim your freedom, seize your birthright. This is the anthem, the beat of the brave. From the ashes we rise, from the darkness we save. No more silence, no more fear, no more lies. Welcome to the brilliant life where the spirit never dies.
You just finished another episode of the Brilliant Life podcast. If this helped you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Hit subscribe, leave a review, and if you're ready to stop surviving and start commanding your life, book a free consultation at brilliantlifecollective.com. Remember, you're not rebuilding the old life. You're resurrecting a new one. I'm Mike Moulton. I'll see you next week.